Most people don't associate like slowing down in this case, pausing, getting grounded as powerful, but it is. This is how you become powerful. This is how you get control back over your life, over your choices, how you show up, how you choose not to show up in certain situations.
Mhm.
And I think Erin hit on a really big one for parents, which is when you're more grounded, it creates this space and energy for your child to process that situation differently as well. Welcome to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast, where we explore some of the truly difficult questions and challenges that parents and their families face every day. Whether it's the sometimes painful process of parenting teens and young adults, navigating relationships with your partner and children, or you discovering your purpose in relationship with yourself, we will bring heartfelt and vulnerable conversations to the table to support and empower you. Our mission is to help you create a lifestyle full of love, passion, adventure, and influence. Here we go. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Hands up in the air, Erin, to the Extraordinary Purpose Podcast. How's everybody doing today?
Whew.
Hey, Erin.
Hi, babe.
How you doing today?
I'm doing really good, actually.
You look good.
Feeling
Hopefully you're
good.
feeling better. We've been sick I've been sick the past couple of weeks. So it's good to feel good
Hey,
again.
don't drag me into this.
I'm not. I would never do that in a million years. But yeah, it's been a rough couple of weeks. I was telling some clients that I don't know if I'd ever been as sick as I was last week. I was out the entire week, which
Yeah,
has
babe.
never happened.
You were sick. Well, my daughter Skylar was sick she missed school for 4 days.
She did.
She was sick for she too, I haven't seen her sick like that since she was a tiny. Fever, just chest cold, sore throat, horrible,
Yeah.
could not get out of bed. And then sure enough, Chris got it 3 or 4 days later.
I knew it was
10
coming.
days, I think.
I knew it was coming. However, though, something that I've gotten a lot better at, especially since I've met Erin, she's been a godsend, is she has taught me how to slow down, how to take better care of myself when I'm not feeling good. And she takes really good care of me too.
I
So
try to teach you that.
I'll add that in.
Doesn't always follow my guidelines, which drives me crazy, but
No, but I have noticed that it makes a really big difference. It really does.
yeah,
And so that kind of brings us to today's topic, doesn't it?
it does.
Yeah, today's topic is something, God, I know we always talk about how important all these conversations are for us parents. But this one is another really important thing for us to practice, not just once, not a couple of times a week, but literally maybe multiple times each day.
Hmm.
And Erin, what is that thing that we're going to be practicing?
Today we're talking about, and yes, this is a good segue because this is something you had to practice a lot
That's
when you were
true.
sick, honey. And so it's really a skill and a
Ooh,
practice of staying grounded in really challenging moments throughout the
yeah,
day, throughout the week, throughout the month.
yeah,
And Chris really had to practice this because he has high standards for himself and for our work and our business and our family, maybe even a little bit more than I do. So he really can get down on himself when he's sick. He's one of those people that's, I'm so sorry I'm sick. I'm sorry I'm not able to do this. And then I'm like, just rest. You have to get better. So he had to practice a lot, staying grounded over those 10 days and just really recognize that he needed to rest and get better.
yeah. And it can make all the difference in the world because the one thing I think when you take a minute and you slow down and you really start to notice, there are these moments throughout our days, and there's probably dozens of moments each day where you need to get grounded. You need to be grounded in order to handle a situation.
Yeah. And so the reason I think this is so important for parents, especially, is that yes, we need this when we're dealing with our partners, with bosses, with coworkers, with clients. The most important place where this can be most effective is with our kids, because the
Yeah,
truth is, our kids can trigger some major insecurities. They can trigger things to the depths of our souls,
sure they
right?
can.
When we are being called out by our kids, or they have an attitude about something, or especially with moms, we have that mom guilt bubbles up. It triggers like the little child within us often.
Hmm.
And when that happens, we get into that reactive mode. We kind of put ourselves on their level and you start acting like a child again as well. And it's just so easy to react in ways that we really wish we hadn't. If you're listening to this, parents, you know the difference, right? You know those moments when you can think back on your day and you're like, wow, I really handled that well. I'm
Yeah.
proud of myself. I feel like I handled that with my daughter and my son really well. And I responded really well. I didn't react. You feel empowered. You feel like you're in the driver's seat of your life. You feel like you responded in a really healthy way with your child. And then conversely, when you beat yourself up because, oh my God, you reacted. You got in a screaming match with your daughter and you let her bring you down to that level, and nothing good comes from that. And so it's that feeling of losing control. You lose connection with yourself, you lose connection with your child. And that is why this is so important. But the caveat here is that you don't just learn how to be grounded one day. Staying grounded is a practice. And that's what today's topic really is about. It's this practice, these little rituals and habits that we're going to talk about putting into place so that the more you practice, the more you're going to wire your brain to start learning how to show up more connected and more grounded in those really hard moments.
Yeah, and it's interesting because this conversation is kind of an add-on to when we talked about a few weeks ago, showing up as the best version of yourself. The best version of yourself is this version of yourself that's calm, that's connected, that's grounded. And when you're calm, connected, and grounded, you're going to get better results because you have access to everything that you need, including the choice of how you want to show up in terms of solutions to a problem. And when you're not grounded, that's when you don't have connection with those parts of yourself. That's when we find ourselves reacting and shutting down and making a situation worse in certain situations, all because we've lost connection with ourselves. And ultimately, and Aaron, I mentioned this to us before we started this conversation, I think the real thing that we're trying to gain here is we need to see the path forward.
Yeah.
We need to see the solutions to a problem. And so, for example, if we're talking about, hey, we're having a really tense conversation with our child, our teen, or our young adult, or maybe even our partner,
Mhm.
if you're not grounded and you're in your head and you're already just triggered by something, you're not going to see the solutions to a problem. You're not going to be able to see, like, how can I show up so that we can navigate this together to get to the other side, to a positive side. You're going
Mhm.
to show up and you're going to say things that you don't mean. You're going to do things that you don't mean or believe in. And you're not going to be proud of yourself.
Yeah, because when we get triggered, when we start to react, it's usually coming from the past, right? We're
Sure.
living in the past and we're remembering things that happened yesterday or last week.
Yeah.
And we start bringing up all these stories of they did this before and she said this last week and he did the same thing yesterday. Or we're living in fear of the future.
Sure.
If this doesn't get resolved, or if my child keeps acting this way, or keeps getting these grades, it's going to ruin their future, and we get triggered and react. And so, a lot of these little rituals and habits we're going to talk about here in a few minutes are about getting present.
Yeah.
And that's what Chris was just saying is when we are clouded and it's foggy and we're angry or rageful or we're upset, you can't see anything. And so, it's about practicing in our everyday life throughout the day. How do we implement these little rituals and habits that help us learn how to be more present so
Yeah.
that we can be more present when things get hard. So Chris and I are both going to briefly share an example
Oh, okay.
from our own lives of when this came up and when we actually responded really well, just to give you an idea. And as we're talking, think about something maybe from the last week or this past month in your own life. And so I'll go first. I'll share
Okay.
about a situation I had with my daughter. So we are getting ready to go on spring break. We're going on a cruise, and you want to do all the things as you're getting ready for spring break and get your hair done, your nails done, go shopping. You spend as much as you spent on vacation getting ready to go. Chris is dying over
Oh
there
my
right now.
gosh.
And so, and I'm trying to teach my daughter some life lessons around all of this, right? These kids, moms, you can definitely relate, especially if you have daughters, I think more than boys sometimes just the technology and the social media and the influencers and they want everything they see. And so it's this constant, I need this, I need that, I got to do this, I have to do that. So I'm trying to help her learn how to make choices. You can't have everything. You can do
Mhm.
this or you can do this. So she had to make a choice between her hair and her nails, and she still had clothes she wanted to get. So I picked her up from school one day last week and she had a complete meltdown. She was crabby, she was in a mood, it was a long day. And there's been plenty of times where I get involved because it triggers things within me. I start to feel guilty. It's spring break. Maybe I should just let her do everything. I start questioning myself. The tennis
Hmm.
match starts going off in my mind. I just want to be able to spend all the money I want. Why should I have to be careful? And so I get triggered often and I'll get into this match with her and we go back and forth and I tell her she needs to be more grateful. But this time I remembered and I stayed grounded and I stayed present and I just let her rant and rave. I didn't get involved in the conversation. I don't think I said anything. And I had to run into a store and I left her in the car. And when I came out, you know what happened? She had worked it out with herself. And it helped that she got a text from a friend who offered to do her nails for free. So she didn't have to choose. She could get her hair done and her friend was going to do her nails. But the point is that, what happens when we react and we get involved and we're not grounded and we get involved in these shouting matches with our kids, or we feel this need to be right or teach them a lesson in that moment, what are we doing? We rob them from the opportunity for them to work it out with themselves.
Yeah.
When I didn't say anything, I left that shouting match in her own mind. She was having it with herself, not me.
Right.
Right?
Right.
And so she had, when I got out of the car, she just was sitting there with herself. And so she worked it out. She worked it out with herself. She got resourceful and found a friend to do her nails. And I was so grateful for that. When I went to bed that night, I thought back on that, had my own evening self reflection around my day. And I was I felt proud of myself and I felt really grateful that I taught her the bigger lesson, not to be grateful, not that she was being spoiled. She learned a lesson about how to get resourceful and how to work things out with
Oh,
herself.
that's so good.
So powerful.
It really is. It is powerful. And I think that's the thing is most people don't associate slowing down in this case, pausing, getting grounded as powerful. But it is. This is how you become powerful. This is how you get control back over your life, over your choices, how you show up, how you choose not to show up in certain situations.
Hmm.
And I think Aaron hit on a really big one for parents, which is when you're more grounded, it creates this space and energy for your child to process that situation differently as well.
Yeah.
For them to also slow down so that they're not in the moment heated, reacting as much as you're reacting back and forth, which, by the way, we all know how that turns out.
Yeah, you don't have any influence when you're in
No.
that space. And that's the key. The way to have that healthy, productive, positive influence is often to just take a step back and not do anything at all.
So that way, both of us, both people involved or whoever is involved, can come back at it from a different direction, from a
Hmm.
different perspective. When you are literally feeling better, you're at your best. Remember, that's the real power of being grounded is then you can see how you want to show up. You can choose how to show up.
Yeah.
Which kind of gets me to my example, which I'm going to share now. And I'm going to preface this by saying that Aaron and I don't argue a lot, but we both come from other relationships. We both brought two kids into our relationship, which is amazing.
Hmm.
But as some of you probably are aware, co parenting and having four kids between the two of us, it comes with a lot of challenges. It comes with different parenting styles and different beliefs and history and all of this stuff, exes, and
Yeah.
there's a lot of variables. And when Aaron and I would first start to work through those things, oftentimes, admittedly, it would lead to an argument, especially around certain topics, especially around a couple of our kids. Very proud of myself. I'm really proud of us, especially recently, because one, we haven't been arguing about that very much.
Hmm.
But it came up last week again, where I think that the topic came up. I think you were trying to push an argument into the conversation a little bit. Normally, I would have reacted in a certain way. And instead, I paused and I grounded myself. And I realized that wasn't the best way for us to handle that conversation. And I think I said out loud, I think, babe, I think we need to come back at this at a different time. Now is not the time to have this conversation.
Yeah.
And that's a new solution to a problem, by the way, that I think in certain cases, not always, it's not always good to regroup later, but in this case, it was a really positive, healthy thing for us to do, just to pause that conversation and come back at it later, which, by the way, we do and we did. And it was a much, much better conversation.
It was. And then when we were talking about some examples each of us wanted to share, we talked about that. And it took us a minute. We were both like, wait a minute, what were we arguing
I
about?
know.
And that's so often the case. It's like, what are we arguing for
I
anyways?
know.
And especially when it comes to your partner, it's you want to be right.
Of
You feel the
course.
need to be right. You want to get your point across. You want them to see things from your perspective. And
Yeah.
that's usually what it's all about. And when Chris was able to just say, you said, let's pause this conversation. And I'm like,
Yeah.
you know what? He's right. Like, this is going nowhere. And so, what I want to say to some of you who've been married for 20 or 30 years,
Yeah.
and you're like maybe asking yourself, how do we get out of this pattern of the same two or three
Mhm.
arguments we have? You absolutely can. I mean,
Yeah.
Chris and I haven't been together as long as some of you because this is our sort of second relationship, a
Our
little
second
later.
rodeo.
Our second rodeo. But, we still have patterns. So we have the
Right.
same couple arguments that come up often. And one of them, yes, is around our parenting styles with a couple of our kids. But the fact that we've had this argument probably 100 times over
Yeah.
the last however many years, and Chris absolutely was able to interrupt that pattern. He was able to
Mm.
interrupt it, and we came at it from a whole different place. So it's possible to change any pattern, even if it's something that you have been partaking in for the last 20 years. It just takes grounding yourself and coming at it from a different perspective.
And when you're wondering, like, what can really help our relationship with my partner, my husband, my wife, my children, really any relationship in your life, you want to know what really helps? It's this. This is exactly how you create change. And that's what I love is you're like, oh, it must be some complex solution to fixing our marriage or fixing the relationship with my child or whatever it is. You're like, it must be impossible. It must be really hard. In itself, it's not hard. But the really difficult part of this that I think a lot of people struggle with, as with any habit or anything that you're trying to do, is it takes a lot of practice.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a lot of practice. It's something that you have to practice literally every single day.
So let's talk about what some of those practices can look like. So these are the tangible things that you can start implementing. And for some of you who've been following Chris and I for a while, none of these are going to be brand new.
Wait a second. We're not
We're
reinventing.
not reinventing the wheel.
Oh,
No need to.
why are they listening?
All right. So let's talk about some of these practices. Why
Okay.
don't you get started with the pause and check in, honey?
Yeah, so the pause and check in, I mean, for anybody, as Erin said, anybody that knows us, anybody that has coached with us, or anybody that's listened to our podcast, you know that one of our signature rituals, meaning it's just a part of you, it's a part of your life, it's a part of everything that you do, is this habit or process of checking in with yourself. It's taking time throughout the day, because let's be honest, how many of us, raise your hands, are on autopilot? Like almost 12 hours a day. From the time you wake up in the morning, you're just in go mode. No matter if it's parenting, whether it's work, whether it's anything else going on in your life, you're go, 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 go. What if I told you that the real key to happiness, to improving your relationships, and most importantly, to getting better results, was to actually pause throughout the day, multiple times throughout the day?
Mm-hmm.
And that, my friends, is what the check in is. Very simple. You just pause and you notice, and you might ask yourself some really important questions. And two of the biggest questions that you can ask yourself, especially as it pertains to our conversation today, are what am I feeling? How am I doing? And this is the big one. What do I need? What do I need right now? I don't mean in the future. I mean right now, in order for me to get grounded, to feel good, to be able to move forward into whatever it is that you're about to move forward into. It could be that conversation. It could be a meeting. It could be dinner with your family. Whatever it is that you're about to do, this pause, this check-in with yourself can literally make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, when you start noticing your thoughts, you start noticing that you're all tense, your shoulders might be up, your fists are clenched. Like we don't notice, we're on default and autopilot, like Chris said. And when you take the time to just slow down and slow your breath down and check in with yourself and ask yourself what you need, it's everything.
Yeah.
And then box breathing is another huge one. This is something we teach all of our clients within this check-in and noticing process is box breathing, right? And almost everybody I ask, have you heard of box breathing? Almost everyone has, which I love that. I love that it's really out there and people are taking advantage of it. But box breathing, if you don't know, is simply where you take a moment and you inhale as deeply as you can for a count of 4. And then at the top of your breath, you hold your breath for a count of 4. And then you exhale very almost forcefully, like through your mouth for a count of 4. And you just come back and reset your breath for a count of 4. And when you do that 2 or 3 times, I'm telling you, I've been telling my clients lately, I've known about box breathing for years, but this past year, somehow I've just been really implementing it. I do it all through the day. I do it when I wake up in the middle of the night to put myself back to sleep. It takes you out of your head and back into your body. It
Yeah.
brings you into the present moment. It's a nervous system like reset. And so just practicing box breathing throughout the day 2 or 3 different times can absolutely help you learn how to pause and how to check in with yourself before you take the next step, before you say something you don't mean, before you react. And the only way that you'll get good at remembering to do this in those moments is to practice it in your daily life.
Yeah. And it can make all the difference in the world. And it sounds so simple, but who is actually intentional about taking these little pauses, these little breaks before you do anything really? Because you need to feel the right way. You need to be in the present. You need to be calm. You need to be connected to yourself, to that part of yourself that you need in order to get the results that you're fully capable of getting.
Mm-hmm.
I brought this up to somebody I was talking to yesterday, and it's just part of my lifestyle. But something else that I do to ground myself, and I do this, and well, actually, you do this too, Aaron, at least 5, 6, 7 times a day, is I get outside for a walk. And once again, doesn't that sound so simple? But who intentionally gets outside for a walk? And when I say intentionally, I mean you're doing it for a reason. You're doing it for on purpose. And the reason that I do it, that I recommend all of you do it as well, is because if you're going, once again, you're on autopilot throughout the day, okay? Nonstop action from morning till evening. When I get outside and take a walk, that's my way of resetting. That's my way of getting out of my head, back into myself. Most importantly, back to that question that you ask yourself when you check in with yourself of what do I need? I need a walk. If I'm getting ready to do a meeting, I'm getting ready to coach a young adult or we're coaching parents, like I want to show up a certain way. I want to show up as this great version of myself who is motivated and energetic and who listens and who is present. To do that, I need that walk right before I do something. So by the time that I walk back in the door, guess what? I feel different. I feel different than I did before I left. And that's why I did it.
I love that. Yeah, we love our walks for sure. And just moving your body, that your physiology, changing up what you're doing with your body changes every other
Yeah.
aspect of who you are. A couple other ones are obviously exercise and just moving your body, getting to the gym. Chris and I, as most of you, go to the gym just about every morning.
Just about.
Well, Chris doesn't. No days off. for
No days
Chris.
off. Come on.
And that is just a great ritual, right? That's one of Chris's greatest rituals, even more so than mine. But it's how he starts his day. I meditate in the morning. Chris goes to the gym in the morning.
Yeah, that's right.
And journaling and meditation are 2 other fantastic ones. Meditation, I'm a huge proponent of, and it's so grounding. It really does help you learn how to just the practice of learning to let your thoughts pass by like clouds in the sky and sitting through uncomfortable thoughts, sitting through uncomfortable inner dialogue. It helps you learn how to sit through those moments like I had with Skylar in the car when I was trapped in a car with her. I couldn't kick her out of the car. Well, I could have, but
That would have been interesting.
that would have been interesting. But just in those moments when you feel like there's nowhere else to turn, for me, my meditation practice helps me come back to myself and really get centered and grounded. And journaling is a fantastic way to process, right? It's a great way to process when Chris and I do have those rare arguments. A lot of times when I can sit down and take the time to write about it, what happens is I can always find my self-responsibility in the situation. It can always come down to like how I could have shown up differently, what I could have said differently, how I could have responded differently. And that feeling of being completely responsible and not blaming him for the
Yeah.
situation is so much more empowering. So journaling is huge.
Yeah, I think something that we embrace, babe, is that we're not going to be perfect every day as
Yeah.
parents, as partners, just as individuals, as humans. That's not really the goal. We're not striving for perfection. But the cool thing about journaling, and this kind of ties into checking in with yourself, is we love this idea of like an evening check in with yourself via journaling because there's so much that happens each day. We've mentioned some of those things that can happen each day. Difficult conversations, difficult meetings. Did I handle this correctly? Did I show up the way that I wanted to show up? Did I get the results that I wanted to get today? Did I follow through on the things that I wanted to follow through on? Whatever it was that you had happen today, good. Now let's take a minute at the end of each day and let's learn from it because there's going to be things that you did amazing today. And you should feel good about those things and you should be proud of those things and you should learn from those things so you can repeat and keep it moving forward. But then there's going to be moments each day where you react, where you get angry, where you get frustrated, where you don't feel the way you want to feel. You don't handle a situation the way that you want to handle a situation. And I say good to that too. As long as you're checking in with yourself and you're giving yourself feedback, not beating yourself up, not being hard on yourself, but you're noticing it. You realize that it happened. And most importantly, you understand why it happened.
I love that, babe. Yeah, it's all about progress. None of this is ever about perfection. I was just telling one of my clients, it's the small, consistent steps that we take every day, which can be some of these practices
Yeah.
and some of these rituals. It's the little small steps every day. That's where transformation comes from. That's where these bigger leaps and bounds and being able to interrupt a pattern that you've been stuck in for 10 years. It comes from these little daily steps forward. That's what it's all about, you guys.
Yeah.
That's personal development at its finest. So we hope that you guys implement some of these this week, get going on some of these practices and rituals. And until next time, have a beautiful week ahead.
Have a great week, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye. We are so thankful for you and your beautiful family and hope you found something inside today's episode that brought you hope, inspiration, and most importantly, a path forward. If you're interested in evolving your relationship, giving your kids the most important gift of personal growth and development, or are a mom looking to reconnect with your confidence and become empowered in all areas of your life, then schedule a discovery call with us today. Our mission is to help as many families as possible find their purpose, and that starts with you. See you in the next episode, my friends.